Well, I think it's safe to say, fellas, that week one did not disappoint. Can't wait to get talking all about it. This is the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast.
Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL podcast.
Yes, here we are, back live on a Tuesday night. I haven't been live for ages, fellas. I've even combed my hair just for the occasion. Can't wait to get talking on about week one. There were some absolute crackers. So let's welcome the boys straight in. Josh, evening, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. And I've not actually done quite the effort that you have, I'm afraid. But glad to be here, glad to be live, glad to be talking about proper football. My God, has it been fun up until 5:05 last night as well. So I'm knackered, but in a great way. This is what we're here for, boys. This is what we're here for.
Absolutely.
Football.
Absolutely. Indeed, mate. Yeah, Monday Night Football was a belter as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that very shortly. Steve, welcome in, mate. Enjoy your holiday.
It was very good, thank you. I had a chance to sort of get away from the desk and from work and relax in the Lake District, and then came back just in time for it all to kick off. And I put all the coverage on at about 5:45, watched the build up to the Eagles game, and I don't think I turned off football until about 11:45 when I called it a night. So just a solid 6 hours of football. I love it. It's what Sunday nights are for. Like they say, the NFL now owns the day of the week. Bring it on.
Yeah, it certainly does, mate. It certainly does, yeah. Josh managed a few more than 6 hours. Josh managed till half-time, I think, at our Birmingham meetup of the Sunday night football game. It was very good to get the full 10 yards boys together. Look forward to doing that later on in the season. But enough about us, fellas. Let's talk some actual football. Like you say, plenty to digest, wasn't there? Some big shocks. I think he's probably the best place to start, isn't it, boys? I mean, just looking at our full 10 yards pick'em league, 11-5 was the best record on the week. And I've got to be honest, I was a little bit surprised when I saw somebody picked 11 winners this weekend. There were some absolute shockers in there. So, Josh, let's start off with you, mate. Biggest shocker of the week. What are we going for?
Oh, I don't think you can go too far away from the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I've been flying the flag for the destruction of the New Orleans front office, and yet here we go. They go to Jacksonville, somehow send less fans to Jacksonville than Jacksonville do, and yet still come away with probably their best performance in years, and all against Green Bay, to the point where Aaron Rodgers had his worst ever regular season start. I think it was in pretty much every single category. Including passer rating, fantasy points, pretty much anything, you name it. So, yeah, quite insane. And also, Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns, yet 150 yards passing. On what planet? It's insane, but I loved it.
Do you know what the best part about that stat line is? If that was Taysom Hill, we'd have been absolutely ripping him to pieces, wouldn't we, with 150 yards passing and 5 touchdowns? Steve, what game took you by surprise?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird just seeing the Green Bay Packers only put up 3 points, isn't it? And I think I read that if Aaron Rodgers had spiked the ball into the ground on every single snap that he was in the game for, he would have got a higher passer rating than he did. So that shows how uncharacteristic that was of him. It's so weird to see. I'm going to flip it over and for a team that none of us expected anything from, the Houston Texans bringing out a win week one. They're not going 0-17. Tyrod Taylor obviously listened to our podcast a few weeks ago and was obviously not happy with us saying that they're going to go 0-17. But Shaun, you're right. You said if they can beat the Jaguars, that's a win for them, and they'll avoid that 0-17, and they did. And Trevor Lawrence looked like most rookie quarterbacks do in their first NFL game, sort of a bit deer in the headlights. He had flashes. There was points where he looked quite poised and made some really good throws, but there was also points where, the defenders just watched his eyes and he was picked off 3 times, so he still put 21 points on the board, and he threw 3 touchdowns. So, not not all bad, but that Texans team putting up 37 points. They were the 4th highest scoring team for the weekend. And we all had them going 0-17 a couple of weeks ago. What is happening?
Yeah, I think that part of that as well. Tyrod Taylor's not a terrible quarterback. I think that we've all forgotten that simply because he has not had the game time to go and do it. I mean, the Chargers had to puncture his lung just so that Herbert could get his start. And the Browns had to, feign some kind of injury in order to get Baker Mayfield out there. So, he is a competent quarterback. I think we're all shocked at the fact that the weapons or lack thereof that the Houston Texans have actually rallied around him and made the Jags look silly. I mean, the Jags look like they've not changed at all from the team they were last season. So, it was a shock. Maybe it shouldn't have been as much of a shock as it was. Maybe we just put too much stock into the too
Yeah, could well have
much
done. I think Josh is freezing on the video. So that's the trouble with these live podcasts. Josh has just gone a bit Dalek on us. I think he has come back though. So
I do
we'll get back.
apologise. Am I back?
Yeah, you are back, mate. We'll come back to you very very shortly. I think another couple of games just to call out. Not so much of a shock in terms of the result. I had them on the pick 'em, Steve, your Eagles, but I think we were all surprised with a 32-6 beatdown. I think you must have been quite chuffed with that one.
Do you know what? I'll try not to get on my podium too much about the Eagles because it is only week 1 and it is a bad Falcons team. We'll come on to the power rankings for the Falcons later in the show, but the Eagles were excellent. Like Nick Sirianni had a really good debut as a head coach, especially calling the plays. Jalen Hurts looked poised at a 77% passing completion percentage, so that's really impressive for someone that everyone had written off. So yeah, I think, and I've read a lot of people saying like if the people that have been sleeping on the Eagles are forgetting how good their offense and defensive lines are when they are healthy and they are playing like they were. They are a force to be reckoned with, and they have a top 5 offense and defensive line. The rest of the roster, yes, is up for debate, but apart from those two groups, they are a team to be reckoned with. And obviously, it's Atlanta. I think the most impressive stat is holding Atlanta to 6 points. They went down the field and they scored on their first 2 drives and put 2 field goals up, and that was it. For the rest of the game, they couldn't get anything going, and the Gannon, the defensive coordinator, made adjustments and pressured Ryan, and he just couldn't get the ball out. So yeah, really impressed, really excited. My Ertz shirt is behind me, as everyone can see. I'm very much thoroughly still on the Zach Ertz train, and it'd be a much bigger test next week when the 49ers come to town, because I think that's a much bigger test of this Eagles team.
Yeah, undoubtedly, mate. But like you say, certainly took care of business, as you said, mate. And Liam, who admirably substituted last week, Zach Ertz, he's still an Eagle. I saw Zach Ertz making catches on Sunday, mate. So you must have been chuffed. Even got the jersey out tonight just to celebrate, mate. I can see in the background.
Exactly. Yeah, he played well. I mean, I think he's going to stay on the roster for the rest of the season. But yeah, no, it was good to see an all-round performance. Good to see Devonta Smith get a touchdown as well. He looked good. His route running was excellent. It was just a really, really exciting performance and a lot to look forward to. I just hope we don't get trounced by the 49ers to bring us back down to earth next weekend.
Yeah, week 2 is normally when we actually really start to find out if some of this was a bit flash in the pan. Couple of other results just to pick out. I think the Cardinals putting up 38 against the Titans, limiting Derrick Henry to only 58 yards, I think, on 17 carries. Blueprints there, though, isn't it? If you can slow Derrick Henry down, they may well have upgraded that passing game, but it still seems as though if you keep Derrick Henry quiet, the Titans are going to be in trouble. So that was a bit of a shocker. Pittsburgh getting a win in Buffalo. Probably shouldn't be too surprised. Pittsburgh always well coached, always got a good defense. I think I am probably the person that is the least on the Buffalo Bills out of everybody. I'm really not convinced that the Buffalo Bills are going to have such a good season as they did last year. I'm really not convinced
You're
at
still
all.
going to say it's a surprise, though. I mean, I'm more surprised about the fact that Pittsburgh actually turned that into a win. They shouldn't have been anywhere near that result. They played terribly. Buffalo scored a loss from the jaws of a win there, because at no point did they look in danger until probably the final quarter when that punt got blocked. Before
Yeah.
then, it all seemed relatively serene. So I do think that there needs to be a little bit of a cooling of the Jets there. I do think it is just a bit of, shaking off the rust maybe. But no, fair play to Pittsburgh. They got the dub there. Wish they didn't, but we move.
We do indeed. And like I said, Monday Night Football delivered also, didn't it? And that was probably got down as a bit of a shocker for some people. But I think I did say on this podcast last week, I'm sure the Raiders will fancy their chances opening night at the new stadium. And I didn't stay up for the whole game, but I had one of those Monday nights where I woke up, looked at the clock, it was like 4 o'clock. I thought, right, let's just have a look what the score is. It was 24-17 at that point. And as the NFL does, it just drags you in, doesn't it? It was no longer a quick look at the score. It was, I might as well watch the end of this game. And if you haven't seen the game yet, I'll try not to spoil it, but trust me, just watch the last 10 minutes. Just watch the last 10 minutes if you watch nothing else, because it was so worth it. And I think probably Alex Leatherwood, the most relieved man in Las Vegas this morning.
Just a bit.
What an absolute buffoon. So, yeah, watch the last 10 minutes if you haven't caught up with Monday Night Football yet. We won't spoil it for you. Obviously, you'll know the score probably by now. But, like I say, definitely watch it if you haven't watched the last 10 minutes.
I would say as well, we can't go the pod without mentioning your two's Browns. That game was another nail biter, another heartbreaking loss to Kansas City again in a repeat of that game earlier from last year. What are your thoughts on that? Could you have won it again? Should you have won it again?
Well, absolutely. I think that realistically, it came down to individual errors you can't make at Arrowhead. You absolutely cannot. You can't put down a fumble when you're only one score up. You can't fumble a punt when you're that close as well. Basically, Cleveland had it in their hands the entire game. They had the win in front of them the entire game, and they threw it away. I don't put anything on Baker for that final move. It was just a great play by Dan Sorensen. As much as that pains me to say it, because of other things of which he's done both before and during that game as well. But it was a great play by him. It's obviously just spooked the very final part of a throwaway, and the rest is history. But if we don't get that as the AFC title game, we have been robbed. Not we as in the Browns, we as in the entire NFL community. Kansas versus Cleveland, the third iteration in a year, needs to happen, I think.
Yeah, and you know what they say, mate? Third time's the charm. So I'll take that
Absolutely.
last week one if it turns into a championship come January or February. I can't remember when they're even playing them these days with the season being extended. But we've talked about a number of games there, fellas. I think let's move to power rankings then, because Josh, you're taking the unenviable task, I would say, the unenviable task of upsetting all 32 franchises by ranking these teams from 1 to 32. And obviously after week 1 of the season, very, very difficult. We're obviously basing a lot of your thought process, I would guess, on pre-season expectations, what teams have done recently. So there will be teams that have got wins this week that are probably disappointed to find themselves so low down. But just for the benefit of those that haven't had the chance to actually have a quick look at them yet, do you want to sort of give us your sort of top 5, your bottom 5 maybe, and your big movers and shakers, and then me and Steve will tell you exactly where you've got it all wrong.
Yeah, sounds good. So, top 5, Tampa and Kansas, 1 and 2. You can pretty much interchange them. So essentially the Super Bowl supersedes. Then I've put the Browns in at number 3. They've moved up a couple of spots just because they should have beaten the Chiefs. If you're telling me that the Browns should have beaten the Chiefs and they are locked in at 2, the top 2's gap to the rest of the league now is so damn narrow, and the Browns should be right up there. After that, Rams and Seahawks practically neck and neck themselves. I think they both had excellent starts to the season. Some people will say that, there were expected wins for the pair of them, but they just did it with such aplomb. They did it without any sort of pressure, just took it in their stride. Bottom 5, so Carolina Panthers get that 28th spot. They've stayed there, really, but the fact that they didn't lose to the Jets means that they don't move at all. Then the Jets, because I think they're better than the other 3 that I've got down here. The Texans moved up from 32nd to 30th, and surely this is their ceiling. Surely, right? I do not want to be putting them higher next week, for example, when they're playing the Browns. But no, they're currently at 30, and that was as high as I thought they would ever go, and that was in the wildest dreams. Detroit Lions at 31. A lot will be said about the fact that they played really well against San Francisco. In terms of the amount of points they put on, but it was all garbage time, really. San Francisco were done and dusted. And then the Jags in 32nd and likely to stay there for the entire duration because it's going to be so difficult to move them off the bottom when they've lost to the team that we all thought were going 0-17 this year. Movers and shakers. This is where I have to really squint at my graphic now. So obviously the Browns, Rams, and Seahawks have all moved up 2 to 3 spots themselves. The Bills have gone down 3 spots just because of the fact that they have started out really poorly. The Packers are down from 4th to 8th. Dallas are now 10th. I had them in 15th at the start, but I did say that if Dak rolls, then there's no reason as to why that can't be the case, that they end up around about the 10th spot, which, when you think about it, is just the fact that they're likely to be in the playoffs. Titans and Colts both down 2. It could have been a lot worse, but I'm trying not to panic on week 1 performance. Saints up 3 to 16. Steelers actually down a place. I just don't take that win against Buffalo too seriously. I think that realistically, that was all about the Bills being bad and not about the Steelers being good. Did you know Ben Roethlisberger had a QBR of 28 on ESPN? The average is 50. That's supposed to be the baseline average, 28, and they mostly threw. It was terrible on offense, but yet they still somehow got the win. I think the only other team that's going to be really annoyed is Arizona. I've got them in 18th. They've not moved, but I know that there will be plenty of people that will be annoyed. And the only other mover and shaker, really, Bengals have gone up by 6 spots, mainly because I promised that if the camp talk was just that, then I'd move them up, and I did. And the Vikings are now down 4, because if you lose to the Bengals, then I'm going to move you down a lot of places. So, yeah, that's that. Please do with that what you will.
Like I said, mate, it is an unenviable task. When you
really
told me
is.
that, when you told me this off-season you were going to write it, I did think to myself, more for you, my friend. But it's given us plenty to chew on, plenty to talk about. I think a couple of teams that certainly have caused a little bit of commotion. I think the Cardinals is one that you've said there. Steelers obviously getting a win, yet moving down on your power rankings won't sit well. Dare I say that you might be accused of a little bit of Browns bias there, moving the Browns up for a loss, Steelers down for a win. The Broncos as well, another team that people think should be getting a bit more love, but you're not convinced about that one either. Steve, you've got a bit of a grin on your face. What do you reckon, mate?
You mentioned Brown's bias. I'm sorry, in power rankings, you can't lose a game and move up 2 spots. You just can't.
Of course you can.
You can't. I'm
Of course
sorry,
you
but
can.
you
That's
don't.
ridiculous.
You don't win Super Bowls on nearly beating teams, do you? Like, unfortunately, you lost to the Chiefs. Like, I know you played well, and you it was a good game, but you didn't win the game. Especially when the Rams, the Seahawks, the teams below them, put in performances like they did and came away with the W. I'm not saying they need to be 19th or something, but I'm sorry, you can't do that. And also the Cardinals, when they had the 2 performers that they did that are probably going to take, some awards this week, and then they stay still.
Yeah,
But this is it. This is
the see the teams above them beating them, and I don't think that they're going to get into the playoffs either.
Is it not done week to week though? Is it not done based on their performances week to week? Like,
yeah, but it's not participation medals. I'm not just hand.
Well, you gave Cleveland a participation medal by moving up 2 spots for almost beating Kansas City.
Look, it's not a league table. This is how I see. This is pretty much how I think the playoffs are going to shake down. A Super Bowl of Tampa, Kansas, with Browns and Rams being the losers in the conference championships, and then go down from that. It's probably the best way I can describe how I go about my power rankings. And in fact, if you look at my article and the way in which I will do it each week, I've put them into divisions where you've got, top of the tree, which is literally just 2. So have that as your Super Bowl contenders. Then you got your bubble, of which is those which are just around the title game. And then you got those, playoff caliber, those you can expect to be in the wild card. Then you got those in the hunt. Then you got those that I don't care about. So the Broncos, for example, will probably be there until they prove me wrong. And if they do, fair enough. But I don't see them even being in the hunt. And then you got those that are staring at the draft.
I think another quick one I'd say as well is that having watched the game, the Falcons, I know there's probably not many teams that you can put with them lower than, but they were dreadful. Like, oh God, they were bad. They're in for a long season at Atlanta.
Yeah, same as the Giants. I think personally, because there are so many good teams now, and so many of the middle ones are, they could beat anybody in the middle, really. If you just imagine a gigantic chasm between 25 and the rest, if you just imagine a fault line running through 25 to 26, that's pretty much how you have to look at it.
I do agree, mate. It's going to cause plenty of commotion throughout the season. Give Josh plenty of heat on Twitter, on Facebook, all things full 10 yards. Josh will more than happily argue the toss with you. It's all a bit of fun, isn't it? It's all a game of opinions, And like we say, we'll see how it shakes down after week 2. We've got some proper information at our hands now, haven't we? We'll see who are the real movers and shakers as we start to get into the season properly. Let's talk then, boys, about some game ball. Shaun did a brilliant article. If you haven't checked it out yet, go and check out the website, full10yards.com. Shaun will be giving out game balls each week, offensively, defensively, coach and play of the week. I've got to say, fellas, I thought his selections this week were excellent. Can't say I disagree with them personally, but as it's the podcast, it'd be a bit boring if I just read out Shaun's article. So let's have a debate about some other worthy contenders as well. Steve, let's start with you, mate. Your offensive player of the week.
So I'm assuming for his offensive player of the week, we went with Kyler Murray. Yeah. Yes, of course. So I mean, obviously, that's a standout performance from someone that we all had that conversation about. Is he the real deal? So, a hell of a performance from Kyler. But I think you could certainly point to Derek Carr's performance in Monday Night Football. He threw for 435 yards. That's a hell of a performance, and that final play for them to win the game was an excellent play. Really well scripted. So, I think Derek Carr's an honourable mention. Tyreek Hill was obviously a standout performer in the game against the Browns, and Pat Mahomes is getting a bit of a reputation for what is it that's now the meme that's now appeared is screw it Tyreek will be down there somewhere, and he just launches the ball downfield.
He actually said in a tweet afterwards or something like that, yeah, sometimes it be like that. So he's even sort of half admitting that, if for anything, maybe jokingly, but it really felt like that on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think also I'd give an honourable mention as well to Joe Mixon, Cincinnati, 127 rushing yards, had a really good game. I know some Cincinnati fans are still not sort of convinced by him, but I think he had a really good game in a good win against that Vikings team that looked all out of sorts. I'm not convinced of Minnesota this season if that's how they're going to play every week. So that's a couple of honourable mentions from me.
Sounds good, Josh.
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at, because I did put a poll for each of these, and Jameis Winston ended up with about a quarter of the vote, and it doesn't surprise me because, well, it doesn't. If you put up 5 TDs against the Packers, the Packers are no mugs. So, and this is a guy that has come back from all sorts of ridicule, by the NFL cognoscenti at large, and myself included, and the guy went out there and he put up massive points. Not just him, Dak Prescott as well, I think needs a mention. No one gave him a prayer against the Tampa defense, especially with the offensive line problems that they've had coming into the game, and went toe to toe with Tampa's defense and almost came out victorious. Should have come out victorious, really. So put some love on Prescott's name. So those would be my main other two to look at, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a couple of good shouts. I'd also throw in one that hasn't been mentioned, and I haven't seen him mentioned anywhere, but a bit of a bounce back game for him after a disappointing season last year. I'm talking about Deebo Samuel for the 49ers, 9 receptions for 189 yards. Did, however, nearly throw it away with the fumble in the fourth quarter as the Lions threatened to make quite possibly one of the greatest comebacks ever. But didn't quite materialise. But I thought Deebo Samuel had himself a nice day. And just going to go back to the Derek Carr shout. Completely
Yeah,
agree with the shout. His record of actually sort of game winning or game tying fourth quarter drives and overtime drives is pretty phenomenal. But I'm going to pose a bit of a hypothetical question here, Josh. I know you watched it, so I'll ask it to you because I'm not sure whether Steve's caught it or not yet. How lackadaisical were the Raiders running out the field goal unit?
Oh,
When they were,
terrible.
it looked like they were going to
Terrible.
basically kick a field goal on second down, but they were that lackadaisical. It ended up with a delay of game, which then obviously meant that the play call changed to the downfield touchdown bomb. Do you actually reckon it was almost deliberate to suck the Ravens into thinking they're just going to run it back up the gut? Because everybody on that Ravens defense bit on the run, and Zay Jones he was miles open.
Put it this way, if it was meant as some sort of bluff, then it is the best bit of acting that we've ever seen on an NFL field. Because I can tell you the look on that kicker's face was one of, my God, you've given me no flipping chance here. He was not in on the joke if that is what was coming on. I am going to just skirt back to Steve's point of Derek Carr, though, and say that the first half he was terrible. He was throwing almost exclusively to Ravens players. His second half comeback was, quite sublime when you consider the fact that he could have been picked off about 4 or 5 times in that first half. It was unbearable to watch. But after that, like you say, he did what he had to do. But no one wanted to win that game. Realistically, no one wanted to win it. And then we thought, actually, no, I'm not going to steal it from anyone. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone that's not watched the game yet. But you really should, because that ending, no one wanted to win. That's all we're going to say.
You can see why I ended up staying up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch that ending. If you've seen the end of that game, I'm assuming, fellas, we're not going to pick any defensive players out from the Raiders and Ravens contest for our defensive shout outs of the week. I think it's a fairly conclusive
I'm not
winner.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's a fairly conclusive one. Do we just want to wax lyrical about Chandler Jones for 2 minutes, then, boys? Because what an absolute beast of a performance. 5 sacks. I mean, he's been doing it season in, season out, and he's still, for my money, one of the more, I wouldn't say he's necessarily underrated, but he's certainly under-talked about. He's never in the same conversation as the likes of, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald, all of these guys. You never really hear the name Chandler Jones mentioned in that same sort of company. But statistically, he just does it week in and week out, doesn't he? I mean, it was a phenomenal performance. I also thought, Steve, that the Philly defensive line was pretty good as well. Is it Hargrave who come through with a couple of big sacks towards the end of the game? I know obviously the game was pretty much done and dusted by them, but certainly just really put the stamp on it and the dominance that they displayed. But any other shout outs other than Chandler Jones, or is that unanimous?
I'd also give a shout out to Pittsburgh's front line. I think that they just caused all sorts of havoc for Buffalo all game. It's pretty much the only reason why Pittsburgh had a chance of winning, because they did cause chaos. It was actually quite fun to. I do enjoy watching defensive side of the ball, and Pittsburgh were fun to watch from that aspect. As much as I don't like to see them doing well, it was still just such a sublime performance. So not one particular player, but as a unit, I'd probably say that if we were giving it to units, they would probably get it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can be waxed lyrical about Chandler Jones, and one thing is definitely for sure is if he keeps that up, he is going to get paid. Because he's in a contract year, so if he keeps that up, he will quite quickly become the highest paid defensive player in the league easily. I just had a quick look at the stats. There were 7 players that got 2 sacks this week. but no one else got more than that apart from Chandler Jones, and he got more than double. Some players, some defensive ends don't even get 5 sacks in a season, and he got it in one game, and he's got 16 more to go. Oof.
Yeah. And don't forget, it's a 17-game season, so he's actually on pace for 85 sacks this year. If he gets 85 sacks, I dread to think what he'll get paid. But
do you know what? Do you know what the highest is in a single season?
Is it 22, 22 and a half? Is it something like that?
I don't actually know. It must
I think
be
Josh is going to look.
that.
I think Josh is looking it up as we speak. So
it's 22 and a half.
Yeah, 22 and a half.
And he's already almost a quarter of the way there in one game.
There's every chance. There is every chance. Right, coach of the weekend. Shaun went with Sean Payton. I think, again, that's a fair shout. I think there was a lot of things conspiring against the Saints. New quarterback, not playing in the home stadium, against an opponent assumed he's going to be one of the powerhouses in the NFC. So I think that was a fair shout. But Steve, I'm sure Nick Sirianni's going to make your list, but anybody else?
Yeah, honorary mention for Nick Sirianni's first time in the NFL, calling plays. He looked poised. He looks like some of the schemes that he was running looked like he'd been a coach in the NFL for years and years as a head coach. So yeah, he certainly gets an honorable mention, especially keeping. I know he doesn't do the defensive side of things, but keeping that Falcons team to 6 points is incredibly impressive. I'd also give some shouts to a couple of others around the league. Sean McVay. Matt Stafford came in, looked effortlessly good in that offense, and he's brought back that deep ball threat that had been lacking in the last couple of years with Jared Goff. So I'd definitely say, that they look dangerous again. And some of the touchdowns, the one he threw to the aptly named Bobby Trees was a wonderful play. So yeah, I'd say Sean McVay, and I'd also give a shout. I know that you're not too favourable on them, Josh, but I'd give a shout to Mike Tomlin.
He was on my list.
Yeah, he's say what you will about the Steelers' performance, but they still beat a Super Bowl favorite in the Bills, and they come away with the win. And he continues to be one of the best coaches in the league, and gets the most out of the players that he's got. And the Steelers are in such a cap hole this season, and we all know what's happened with their roster. So Mike Tomlin would be one on my short list for this week.
Yeah, Josh, you had Mike Tomlin on your shortlist. Any more on yours?
Yeah, so Mike Tomlin, simply because to be able to come away with the dub when you're playing badly, on offense, because offense wins games. So, for him to be able to keep the ship going in order to get that dub was massive. I'd also give a cheeky shout out to Zach Taylor. Cincinnati just kept in that game throughout, and there was some great little, there was some great moves to keep drives going. None more than one of which we're going to talk about in a little bit. The fourth downer that basically put the icing on the cake for them. So that was a gutsy call as well for a guy who is under a lot of pressure. We spoke a few weeks back about how Zach Taylor is one on the hot seat, and then also David Culley of the Houston Texans as well, because I imagine that he probably just looked out at his team and just went, "Go and have fun." Go and have fun. Give the fans something to shout about. And you couldn't actually have asked for a better game as a Texans fan. So, I think that he does need props. As to whether or not it was just the fact that the Jags were just absolutely terrible, or whether there is some coaching behind it, I think that you do need to give credit to be able to get a bad team to do that well in the game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, mate. I think that's fair. We mentioned a few rookie coaches. Final one that I'm going to give a shout out to, Brandon Staley of the Chargers, going and dominating the Washington football team. A lot of talk about that football team and that defense. Absolutely put them to bed, didn't they? 14 of 19 on third down, the Chargers. 14 of 19. That's incredible stuff. And then limited Washington to 3 of 10. So Chargers getting it done on both sides of the ball on third down, outgaining them 424 yards to 259 as well. Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick getting injured in that one, but it certainly looks as though Justin Herbert in year 2 is going to be just as good as he was in year 1. Final thing then, fellas, to wrap up in terms of, from the game ball side of things, play of the week. So, Josh, you've already mentioned the one that Shaun picked out in the article. That is, of course, the shall we call it the overtime clinching play? It was, what was it, fourth and
It was
fourth and a yard,
inches.
fourth and inches,
Fourth and
officially.
inches, and they end up dialing up a long pass play to CJ Uzuma, and it was, it felt very, very Kansas versus Cleveland in the divisional round-esque, where everyone's expecting the run, everyone's putting everything into that, and then all of a sudden, just a perfectly thrown ball to a guy wide open, and roll credits essentially. It was lovely, and I don't have anything that beats it. Maybe any play that Kyler Murray made while running 70 yards to his right. But apart from that, it just seemed to be a really, really good play. I mean, there are some on Monday Night Football as well that you could probably throw in from the last 5 minutes, but we're not spoiling anything for people.
Steve, any particular play catch your eye?
Yeah, there was a few, wasn't there? There was. There's always a load of incredible catches in any week of the NFL, but the DeAndre Hopkins one, when Kyler Murray rolled out to his right and he catches it and just toe taps in the end zone, was insane. Tyler Lockett's catch from Russell Wilson, where he watches it over one shoulder and then turns his head and watches it over his other shoulder and then goes down to catch it. That was an incredible play. Any of Chandler Jones' sacks, the strip sack that he had was incredible. I think you've got to also mention the in a non-offensive capacity, the Eagles play where he, I think it was Javon Hargrave, absolutely destroyed a man. I think it was a running back, and he planted his head in his stomach and absolutely destroyed the man. So that was lovely to see. But yeah, there's been some wonderful plays already, and some of the catches as well. I think there's nothing better in the NFL than a really, really impressive catch, especially when there's like a toe tap involved. And that DeAndre Hopkins one for me, we all know how good a receiver he is, but every time you see it, it's just, yeah. So that would be mine, I think.
Yeah, incredible body control. I'm going to give a bit of a shout out to a Denver Bronco. I'm going to give a shout out to Albert O. I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname. We'll call him Albert O. But not exactly what they drawed up, let's put it that way. Teddy Bridgewater backpedaling and dancing around, avoiding a little bit of pressure. I think he actually said in his post-match interview that he wasn't even supposed to be running a route, but just leaked out into the backfield. And from 8-9 yards out, nice dive for the pylon right in at the corner. So I thought that was a pretty nice
supposed to be running
touchdown
around
as well. Oh no, yeah, but he made the most of it when he did run one, though, my friend. He made the most of it when he did run one. Like you say, plenty of good plays. It's not always about the spectacular catch, It's not always about the gorgeous play. Sometimes it's these broken plays that actually end up winning games, isn't it? Let's be honest.
True, I'll give you that.
It's just the spectacular catches just look amazing, and they're the ones you always remember. They're always one that stick in the mind. But yeah, sometimes when a defensive player makes a play that just blows up a play, it can be equally as impressive.
Yeah, no, it certainly can, mate. Certainly can. It's great, fellas, to have a bit of football back, isn't it? Lovely to actually talk about some proper games. No more hypotheticals. We've got another 16 weeks of this as well, boys. That's the best part about it. It's almost like the season hasn't even started yet. We're only used to a 16-game slate, so maybe week
17. Still got another 17 weeks, and that's before the playoffs.
That's
got
true.
22 more weeks of this, chaps.
I know, yeah. Bring it on, fellas. Bring it on.
Pump it into my veins.
Indeed. If you didn't get it in your feed on Monday morning, please be aware that we will be bringing you some of the quickest reaction to all of the action on a Sunday with our good friend Kieran over across the pond. Kieran will be bringing you some instant reviews and analysis of the games on Sunday. He was at the Bengals this week, had a thoroughly good time. He's even found himself on Instagram. I think he's in one of the players' Instagram stories. He was that close to the sideline. So Kieran will be with you every Monday morning with some instant reaction. Me and the fellas will be here live on a Tuesday, so interact with us. Tell us how badly Josh has got his power rankings, and we'll break down all of the big plays and all of the big names from the course of the weekend. And we'll be back later in the week. We're not sure whether it's going to be Thursday or Friday yet. I think we're leaning towards Friday, but it might be Thursday, so keep your ears peeled. But we will be previewing all of the action for the week ahead Plenty of stuff going up on the website as well, not just from us, but also from the college lads, from Tim doing all the excellent work he's doing across Britball. We really are now into the full swing of things. Got all your coverage for all your American football needs. So keep it all things full 10 yards. Fellas, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Looking forward to week 2 already. Don't forget to join the Pick'ems League if you haven't done so already. You're only as much as 11 games behind the leader already after the first week. That's how tough it was. So make sure you do join the Pick'ems League and get involved with all things that we're doing here. Boys, we'll be back later in the week. Pleasure to have your company as always. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you all again very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to find us on all our social channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok and YouTube. Head over to our website, full10yards.com, where you can find out more information about why we are #4the game.